The observation deck hummed with the low thrum of the station's gravity generators. Through reinforced transparent aluminum, 1,000 stars scattered across the void like diamonds on black velvet. The human sat alone at a corner table, nursing a glass of whiskey that had traveled 3 parsecs to reach this outpost. He had earned his solitude. 12 years of service in the Coalition defense. Forces had carved lines into his face that made him look older than his 38 standard years. His right hand, a synthetic one, moved with perfect precision as he lifted the glass. But anyone who looked closely could see the slight hesitation before each movement, the way his brain still had to consciously command what had once been instinct. The Vryn female approached his table with the characteristic grace of her species. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her scaled skin shifting between deep purple and midnight blue, depending on the light. 4 arms moved in careful, measured gestures that spoke volumes in her people's body language. Her eyes, large and golden, fixed on him with an intensity that made him straighten in his chair. "The human veteran," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords could never reproduce. "May I join you?" He gestured to the empty seat across from him. She folded herself into it with surprising elegance, her lower arms resting on the table while her upper arms remained still at her sides. "You know what I am," she said. It was not a question. He nodded slowly. "Vryn caste-broken. I recognize the marks." His eyes traced the pale scars along her neck, where her caste markings had been deliberately removed. Among her people, such disfigurement meant complete social death. "Then you understand why I sit here alone each cycle, watching others pair off, watching families form." Her secondary eyelids flickered, a sign of emotional distress. "My genetic profile remains pristine. My health is excellent. I could bear strong offspring, but no one of my kind will ever accept me. The caste-broken do not marry. We do not reproduce. We simply exist until we fade away." The human took another sip of his whiskey. He had heard similar stories before, in a dozen different variations across 100 different worlds. The galaxy was full of outcasts. "The war changed many things," he said quietly, "but it did not change everything." No, she leaned forward, all 4 hands now on the table. It did not change the fundamental loneliness of being unwanted, of being functional, capable, even desirable in some objective sense, but still completely rejected by one's own kind. He met her eyes. In them, he saw something he recognized from his own mirror, the peculiar desperation of someone who had accepted their fate, but still railed against it in the quiet hours. "Why approach me?" he asked. "Because humans are different." Her upper right hand gestured to the room beyond, where a dozen different species mingled in the station's social areas. "You form pair bonds across species barriers. You adopt younglings that are not genetically yours. You build families from choice rather than obligation. I have watched you for 3 weeks now, and I have seen how others regard you. With respect, with friendship, but never with the romantic interest that might lead to partnership. I am too damaged for most," he said without self-pity. It was simply a fact. The flesh replacement works well enough, but the nightmares do not stop. The sudden reflexes when someone moves too quickly. The way I automatically assess every room for tactical advantages. Most beings want a partner who can leave the war behind. Then we are both unwanted for different reasons. She paused, and her scales shifted to a deeper purple. "I have studied human customs. I understand that your species sometimes forms partnerships based on practical considerations rather than passion. I have resources. I have health. I have intelligence and skills that translate well to civilian life. And I can bear children." The human set down his glass with a soft click. "You are proposing a marriage of convenience. I am proposing survival." Her golden eyes held his. I have perhaps 20 more standard years before my biology makes reproduction impossible. Among my people, a female without offspring has no legacy, no memory, no continuation. Even caste broken, I cannot bear the thought of ending completely. And you humans, you value legacy as well. I have seen it. You speak of children and grandchildren, of lines continuing, of names being remembered. That is true enough, he admitted. I would be a good partner, she continued. I am skilled in station engineering. I earn well. I cook adequately once I understand a species' nutritional requirements. I do not create unnecessary drama or emotional turbulence. And I would bear your children, raise them with you, give you the family that the war has delayed. The human was quiet for a long moment. The logical part of his brain, the part that had kept him alive through a dozen combat drops, assessed the proposal with cold efficiency. She was right about the practicalities, right about the compatibility, right about the fact that both of them were running out of time and options. But there was another part of him, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be whole, that rebelled against such a clinical arrangement. You deserve better than a transaction, he said finally. Her scales rippled with what might have been surprise. Better? I am caste broken. I deserve nothing. This would be more than I have any right to expect. No. He leaned forward, his synthetic hand and his flesh hand both flat on the table. You deserve what everyone deserves: respect, partnership, maybe even love, if we are fortunate enough to find it. Love is a human concept, she said, but her voice carried uncertainty. Love is a universal concept. Your people just wrapped it up in caste obligations and genetic imperatives until you forgot what it looked like in its pure form. He paused. I have fought beside Vryn warriors. I have seen how fiercely you protect those you claim as your own. I have seen the tenderness you show to injured comrades. Your species knows love. You have just been taught to deny it to yourself. Her 4 hands trembled slightly. You are saying no. I am saying that if we do this, we do it right. He reached across the table, covering one of her hands with his flesh hand and another with his synthetic one. I am saying that I will not reduce you to a breeding partner and a convenient domestic arrangement. I am saying that if you are brave enough to break caste for the chance at a real life, then I am brave enough to offer you a real partnership. I do not understand the difference. The difference is that I will court you properly. I will learn what makes you laugh, what makes you think, what makes you feel alive. I will introduce you to my friends and ask about yours. I will take you to places you have never been and share experiences that have nothing to do with reproduction or practicality. And if, after all of that, we still choose each other, then we will marry. Not because we are desperate, not because we have no other options, but because we genuinely want to build a life together. The Vryn female was silent for a long moment. Her scales shifted through a rapid sequence of colors that he could not interpret. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. No one has ever offered me such a thing. Then your people are fools. He squeezed her hands gently. I am not saying this will be easy. I am not saying I am some perfect partner. I still wake up screaming sometimes. I still see enemies in shadows. I still carry the war with me everywhere I go. But I am willing to try. To actually try. Not just to settle. Why? The question carried the weight of her entire life. Why would you do this for me? Because 12 years ago, a Vryn soldier pulled me out of a burning dropship. She lost 2 of her arms doing it. When I asked her why she risked herself for a human, she barely knew. She told me that every life has value, regardless of species or caste or circumstance. She died 3 days later in a hospital bed, and I never got to thank her properly. He met the female's golden eyes. Maybe I cannot repay that debt to her, but I can honor what she taught me." The Vryn female pulled her hands back slowly, all four of them moving to cover her face in a gesture of overwhelming emotion. Her scales had turned a pale silver, a color he had never seen on any Vryn before. "I do not know how to do this," she said. "This courtship, this building of something real. Neither do I," he admitted with a slight smile. "I have been at war since I was 23. My relationship experience is limited to a few failed attempts and a lot of good intentions. But I am willing to learn if you are." She lowered her hands. Her scales had settled into a soft lavender color. "I am willing. Then let us start simple." He raised his glass. "What is your name? We have been talking for 10 minutes, and I just realized I never asked." "Lyra," she said. "My name is Lyra." "Jack," he replied. "And I am very pleased to meet you, Lyra." She reached for the glass the server had placed before her earlier, some kind of mineral suspension that her species found refreshing. She raised it carefully. "To new beginnings?" "To new beginnings," he agreed. "And to the courage it takes to choose something better than survival." They touched glasses carefully, the soft chime ringing out across the observation deck. Through the viewport behind them, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small acts of bravery happening on a forgotten station at the edge of mapped space. But for two outcasts who had found each other in the vastness, those stars suddenly seemed a little brighter.